College football playoff. Here's the top 6 teams. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4, LSU 5, USC 6. So nobody wants to say this. I kind of feel bad for, Reese Davis on the ESPN coverage. Reese went to Alabama, and, he's very objective, but he doesn't want to, he wants to come across, as objective, and he is. I don't know Reese well, but he's a pro. Alabama's 7. Why won't anybody say this? Alabama's going to sneak into this thing. Okay. Michigan will not have their best player against the Buckeyes. They get whacked. LSU gets whacked by Georgia, and they will. USC loses to Notre Dame. Certainly possible that would be 2 losses. TCU loses. 2-loss Alabama, 2 last-second losses. They can't get in as the number 4 team. We all know the SEC is the best conference. They can't have 2 teams. I mean, this afternoon, we got Michigan, Ohio State. That feels like a 2-team conference. Alabama at 7 is sitting there, and I'm like, they lost on the last play of the game to LSU. That's in Tuscaloosa, they win. Neutral field, they win. I'm not taking anything away. I feel that LSU and USC are the same team. They're very good today. They'll be great next year. Transfer portal, offensive coach, got a young, talented quarterback. They're very good. Neither is great. LSU's big win, last play of the game. USC's big wins, very close. The best 2 teams, USC has beaten, UCLA at home, Oregon State in the road, come down to the last second. They're very good. Now, USC again and LSU next year are going to be top 3, top 5 preseason teams, I believe. But nobody's talking about Bama because nobody wants to say it because everybody's rooting against Saban getting in. I look at number 7 and I think LSU, I think Bama, right now you stack up Bama, their roster. I think it's better than everybody in the country except Georgia. I mean, Bama's been out recruiting at the same level of Ohio State for years. I've watched Ohio State 6 different games this year. I've seen them play one great game. They have bad halves, bad quarters. I think Georgia's the best team. So, and my takeaway is I'm not bothered by TCU making the playoffs. Cincinnati bothers me when you get a non-Power 5 team. But TCU, not a great recruiting juggernaut. I think in Rivals last year, they were like 40-45. But I think they have an NFL quarterback. I think they have a veteran college coach. They play in a major conference, and they've beaten some quality teams. So TCU doesn't bother me. I never have a problem with like a non-traditional power from a Power 5 getting in. When you try to convince me the Cincinnati Bearcats can go up against, Ohio State, I see the recruiting. That doesn't mean they can't have a great player like Sauce Gardner. It's not the same level of recruiting and talent. It's not. So Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4, LSU 5, USC 6, Bama 7. But it's interesting. I do feel it's not a bias against Alabama, but it's almost like somebody who stayed too long at a party and everybody wants them to sort of leave. Listen, it's great seeing you again. Oh, don't you have work tomorrow? Don't you have a big meeting tomorrow, Alabama? Yeah. Aren't your in-laws coming into town? Boy, you better get some rest. We'll see at the next party, Alabama. Nobody wants Alabama in. I don't know. If TCU stumbled, you going to take 1-loss TCU over 2-loss Alabama? Come on now, bruh. Come on now. You're not going to convince me of that. USC number 6. That shit feels good. I'm not going to lie. It feels good. On my phone. Hold on. Let's look at that right there. I took a picture of that thing. That thing, I eliminate photos all the time for my storage. I'll be 80 and have that thing up there. that feels good. Speaking of Trojan power, Sam Darnold will get the start for Carolina this week. It's about time. Listen, Darnold and Baker Mayfield. They didn't work. They were disappointments. Here's my only thing. I said about Baker Mayfield multiple times. You guys like to remind me I missed on Darnold. I did. But I said about Baker Mayfield multiple times. All this nonsense and this chutzpah and this snarkiness was going to cost him because he was never, ever going to get an offensive line as good as Cleveland and a running back as good as Nick Chubb. He was never going to get that again. That first contract, when you're not paying the quarterback, you can load that roster up. They went and got a free agent right tackle. They went and got Austin Hooper. You can go get Jarvis Landry. You can bring in OBJ. So for all the Baker fanboys, now he's in Carolina. That's an average offensive line. That's the average NFL offensive line, Carolina. Baker's never been talented enough to overcome an average offensive line. Mahomes can, Lamar Jackson can, Herbert can, Baker Mayfield can't. Sam Darnold can't. But there was this idea that Baker was this, supreme quarterback in comparison to Darnold. Not really. Darnold's bigger, better athlete, just more reckless. Baker's a better thrower of the football, but not as athletic and small. But when he was in Cleveland, I said, all this snarkiness, all this cockiness, you're not going to get that extension, and you're going to get shipped, and you're going to have an offensive line which is going to unveil your size, your lack of athletic ability, your lack of mobility. And it did. People are like, how did Baker Mayfield get so bad so fast? No, the question is, how did Baker Mayfield not realize how effing good that O-line was and Nick Chubb were in Cleveland? That O-line, guard, center, guard, was the best in the league. You'll never get that again in your career. And then they go pay for a right tackle, draft a left tackle, get Austin Hooper. It was an all-star team in Cleveland. And Baker didn't have the self-awareness to understand, bro, what you have now is an all-star team. The minute you sign a big extension, you can't keep both those guards. You can't keep David Njoku and Austin Hooper. So you thought you got me on Baker. You thought you got me on Darnold. They were both misses. I was right on one. I was wrong on the other. Listen, you don't want to get cocky with me. See USC, number 6.